Any information on a potential pass on the Gray Cat buggy, additional damage states, etc. People are going to load up their Gray Cat buggies in their ships and take them down planet side. So do you have to do damage states for a Gray Cat then?
It's called Melt It for a Dragonfly.
Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is Ship Updates. Now this week, of course, the big story that everyone's talking about is the Cutlass, the new Cutlass Black. We finally got some really in-depth footage of it, looking at, the transition from the old model to the new model, and they're doing it in kind of an in-lore way with the video that was on this week's ATV. They're taking it from the perspective of Drake itself, kind of looking at the original concept and saying this ship wasn't delivering, so we got to go back and we got to redesign it. So it was really good. It was really interesting to watch, and it was a really creative way to kind of deal with the problem, and kind of acknowledge the shortcomings of the original Cutlass and then look at ways to correct it in this Cutlass. Now, of course, this Cutlass has one extra gun, I believe, for the pilot to direct up front. So it should have, it looks like, 4 gimbaled weapons, those size and specification. I have not been able to find those yet. That information might be out there, but I haven't seen it. And so we'll have to wait. Now, of course, there is a patch, I believe, that is released, that is live right now or about to go live at the time of my recording this. 263, but apparently that is only a few bug fixes. I do not believe the Cutlass Black is part of that. I'm going to go back and kind of check that out again, but I'm pretty much 99.9% sure that this ship is not in that patch. But by the time you're watching this, I may be wrong, but obviously you'll have heard that the new Cutlass Black is out by then. Now, overall, they kind of showed the old Cutlass Black interior, and then they showed the new one with these new pilot seats. You see here the pilot transitioning up higher into that new cockpit. And, of course, the rear seat, I can assume, only does the same. Here's the turret, location where you kind of rise up in your chair into the turret. So, overall, it was a really interesting segment to watch, and it kind of left me with a lot of questions. And unfortunately, right at the start of Happy Hour, they pretty much said they're not going to be answering any Cutlass questions this week, which was kind of nuts to say, after having seen this amazing segment. It was kind of nuts to see. And, I wanted to ask, can you configure things or can you share things in the ship to the point where, say, the higher, where you can change which seat is the pilot, So maybe the seat further in the back could be the pilot, and the seat down in the front, maybe that person can control the guns. Is that a possibility? Things like that, but I guess we'll have to wait in the future. My default answer would probably be probably not, but it would be really cool to see that kind of variability and functionality brought into the ship. Now, apart from all this great new footage of seeing the ship in game, there was also a little bit of kind of an RP segment towards the end of the promotional video where they were talking about how the Drake Cutlass Black is very popular with pirates. Accounts for 2/3 of all ships used by known piracy groups, which, against the PU right now, I'd say it's probably not true, because I tend to see more Ninetales, Gladiuses, and Sabres than anything else. Rarely do I see a Cutlass, but, I don't know. Probably in the PU, in the proper PU, that will all be finished. But then they go on to do a whole kind of like investigative reporting, inside journalism type thing, where Jan Dredge, voiced by Sandy Gardner, is saying, I don't care who buys the ships as long as they buy them, blah, blah, blah. And then, Drake kind of defending things, saying, well, we also supply the Cutlass Blue and the Cutlass Red. So, those are used to save lives all over the place, and we have no control over what people do with the Cutlass Black, that sort of thing. And then it ends with the CEO of Drake, having to step down because of her comments. And it was really cool to see, and I thought, that would probably be some good groundwork for some lore missions once the PU becomes live, or as we go into the live PU. Like, perhaps if you're a criminal, you can be sent out by Jan Dredge, possibly through a functionary or a third party, to go and take out this reporter that, kind of got her booted out of Drake. Or maybe as a law-abiding player, you can go out and defend that person, and maybe, like a cool little piece of cosmetic equipment or something like that. I don't know. Just, I thought it would be a fun thing to add into the lore. It was one of the first things that kind of came to mind when I saw that. So there's a suggestion, CIG, if you're watching. Now, apart from that, there was also some other details. But of course, before I get to that, with the Cutlass Black finish, that means that as of right now, I believe they are now free to begin the final work on the Cutlass Blue and the Cutlass Red, because the prerequisite to finishing those ships was getting the Cutlass Black done first, because obviously with this updated exterior on the Black, you would then have to update the Blue and the Red to match that. And so with the Black being done, I believe that was the next thing for Josh Coons to take on, was the Blue and the Red, though I'd have to go back and check, but I believe those were the next two projects after this, unless there's something else that's been kind of, picked to go ahead just in time for a 3.0 release. You never know. Maybe something needs to needs a little help across the finish line. But either way, having this ship in this state, I think, pretty much points to it being at least ready for 3.0. When we'll see it, who knows at this point. But there were some other details, and I do want to get them out there. And the Aurora update continues. They're still working on that, so there is no date on when that's going to be complete, but it is looking like they're fairly close to having it all finished. For 3.0, all ships, I guess all currently flyable ships, are going to be getting a lighting pass on the interior to make things more efficient. Now, recently we had seen in videos with the Caterpillar where they were talking about having to redo all the lighting to the point where they were able to take thousands of light objects and lower that number, astronomically. I can't remember what the exact number was, but down to 50 or 60 or 100 maybe, somewhere in there. But they really reduced it, and they said that's going to help with the efficiency for your CPU or your graphics card, making things a lot easier for your PC to render. So from what they were saying on Happy Hour, looks like, I guess, all flyable ships are going to be getting the equivalent workover prior to 3.0 being released. So, every little bit helps there with CPU efficiency. And also for 3.0, since, one of the big questions that some people might have is, do I always have to land at a landing pad? Can I land anywhere on a planet? And if I do, what's with all the uneven terrain? Is my landing gear going to be able to articulate and compensate for, some irregularities in terrain? And it looks like it will. It looks like they're going to give your ship a reasonable amount of travel on its landing gear and on its loading and unloading ramps to allow you to compensate somewhat for terrain. Now, I guess larger ships, of course, you're going to have to look for larger, almost flat areas, but it looks like they have thought of that, and it is going to be something in 3.0. And that's about it for this week in terms of ship updates. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the Cutlass Black footage so you can see it unedited and enjoy. Thanks for watching.
70 years ago, Drake Interplanetary built the Cutlass in a gamble to win a military bid. But the military didn't bite. Drake Interplanetary wasn't deterred, however. The company retrofitted the Cutlass for civilian use.
When we first rolled out a flyable model of the Cutlass to the public, it kind of drifted from our own expectations and from our own intent. It lost some of the aggressive characteristics that we had sold it on when we first unveiled it. And that was one of the biggest things we wanted to recapture in the rework. We wanted to make it feel like look and feel like the ship we had originally promised to people. But to really pull that off, we did have to make some changes and split off a few pieces of functionality. But then what that left us with was a lot more room to really build on the rating support potential of the Drake Cutlass, where now this can be that backbone of a small militia unit, of a small just defense group.
The first iteration of the Cutlass wasn't very ergonomical for the pilot or the co-pilot. We had many complaints from the customers saying it's hard to get in and out, and people stepping on other people's toes. So we went with a better design on this one. We have the pilot and co-pilot being able to enter and exit from either side of their sea stations with neither the pilot nor co-pilot getting in the way of each other on enter or exit for much faster mounting, dismounting. The living quarters have also been retrofitted to be a little bit more spacious. The armaments have been upgraded. We have more space for armored equipment, as well as bunk racks, the main living quarters, as well as access to the gun's main weapon system located in living quarters instead of the rear.
It's going to be a very potent threat to come across for mid-sized ships and up, because it's going to carry a lot of missile firepower. We've added more guns to the ship. Just its general armor and durability can now really sell through both in its appearance and its performance. We didn't skimp out on what it can do. We made sure you can haul your cargo, you can haul your friends, you can blow up a ship if it's trying to take you down. Some people decide to use our ship to take other people down, I guess.
The Travel Safety Advisory System estimates that 15,000 people die annually in outlaw raids, and the Cutlass Black accounts for 2/3 of all ships used by known piracy groups. People have often questioned Drake Interplanetary's role in these raids. Is the company intentionally marketing their inexpensive but deadly Cutlass Black to criminals? We decided to find out. Posing as an applicant for their sales department, one of our reporters traveled to the Magnus system and sat down with Drake Interplanetary's long-standing CEO, Jan Dredge. She didn't know she was being recorded.
Your resume is quite impressive. As you probably assumed, this last interview is really more of a formality.
Can I ask a question?
Ask away. Unless they're salary related, that goes through HR.
Of course. I am curious about the Cutlass Black. Have you considered including mandatory background checks for buyers, to avoid selling to criminals?
Listen, what happens after a Cutlass leaves the showroom isn't my problem. When there's a murder, do you blame the killer or the person who manufactured the gun?
After this audio was released, family members of piracy victims expressed their outrage by calling for a ban on the Drake Cutlass. Today, Drake Interplanetary responded with a press statement. We apologize for the comments made by Jan Dredge. After many years of devoted service, Ms. Dredge has decided to retire as CEO of Drake Interplanetary and spend more time with her family. While she will continue to remain on the board, Ms. Dredge will no longer be involved in daily business operations. Her son, John Dredge, will fulfill her duties as acting CEO until a replacement can be found. Drake Interplanetary is committed to the safety of all citizens and civilians. Our Cutlass Blue and Cutlass Red models are specifically designed for use by police and first responders. They continue to save countless lives across the universe. The Terra Gazette has confirmed that Jan Dredge's so-called retirement goes into effect today. However, Drake Interplanetary refuses to comment on whether they will continue to sell the Cutlass Black to known piracy groups.
Quantum travel initiated.